I'm riding every ride at Epic Universe, like a Mario coaster that literally jumps the track, an insane racing coaster, a How to Train Your Dragon coaster with real dragons, and even the most advanced and ambitious ride ever created. This park is literally home to 11 of the most mind-blowing rides on Earth, and I'm riding all of them to find out, is Epic Universe actually worth the hype, or is it a complete disappointment? Starting in Super Nintendo World. First, I walked through this portal, then I slowly went up an escalator, which took me to one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yo! Oh my god. Bro, I was just at the Mario Land over in California a couple months ago. This is so much bigger.
And it gets even crazier, because after walking under this bridge, I entered Donkey Kong Country, which is home to a roller coaster that literally jumps the track. It all starts inside of the Temple of the Golden Banana, where this old guy tells us that the banana's been stolen, and it's up to us to get it back. So we hop into our minecart, and it's time to ride. It starts by turning onto a lift and launching out of a barrel, floating through the air before slamming back onto the rails. Then out of nowhere, we jump off the track and dove to the side, landing back on the rails before jumping the track again and going straight for a little. All of a sudden, we plummeted down, then soared over a ton of giant spikes, landing just in time to twist into a tunnel. Then the track ended, so we jumped to the side before swerving out of the way of this guy. Then we grinded to a stop and started climbing up another lift. We came right next to a waterfall, then fell down a hole because this guy tore up the track, which was really not nice of him. We landed back on the rails, twisted up, snapped onto more straight track, and dove to the side. Suddenly, we flew across the water and entered back into the Temple of the Golden Banana, where we came face to face with an unbelievable Donkey Kong animatronic and restored the Golden Banana.
That was really cool. I have ridden tons of coasters before, but I have never ridden anything like that before. I will say though, the illusion didn't work as well as I hoped it would. Like obviously I know it's not actually like physically jumping the track. There's some sort of trickery going on, but I expected it to feel more like we were jumping the track. That could have just been though because we were in the back row and I just straight up could barely see the track. So I'm a little bit disappointed, but overall it was still a really fun coaster. And that was just the first of the 11 insane rides we're gonna ride today.
Including an utterly insane looking racing coaster, a ride that is known as the most advanced and immersive ride in the entire world, and even 2 more Mario rides, which, since we're already in Mario World, we might as well ride, starting with the biggest Mario ride, Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. But it broke down, so I decided to go over to the Dark Universe.
I'm gonna keep it real, out of every single land that this park has, this is the one I'm most excited for. Mario is cool, Harry Potter is cool, How to Train Your Dragon is cool. This is unlike anything else in the world. I don't think there's another theme park that has a full-scale horror-themed land like this. I've also heard that the ride in here is the best ride in the entire park. I'm so excited.
So I headed through the portal, went around a few buildings, and came face to face with one of the coolest things I've ever seen at a theme park.
Oh my god. This is unbelievable.
And inside of that castle was the ride that I was most excited about, Monsters Unchained.
People say this is the greatest thing that any amusement park in the history of amusement parks has ever built. I am struggling to even formulate words to explain how excited I am to ride this thing. Oh my god.
It starts by taking me through the creepy halls of Frankenstein Manor. First, we entered this room with a nice family picture, a fun fireplace, and an ominous glowing box. I'm sure that's nothing though. Then we continued on and came across a mangled Frankenstein's monster with a screen showing us info about him. From there, we climbed up to the second level, saw a little video about one of the monsters, and a cabinet showing a few inventions, including this one that controls and reflects sunlight. I wonder if that's gonna be important. Finally, we had arrived to the first pre-show. Igor showed up on a screen to tell us that we're going to be going on an experiment where we're going to be riding in this thing, which he's going to be piloting. Then the bookshelves open up and we go into the second pre-show where we come face to face with an amazing animatronic of Dr. Frankenstein's great-great-granddaughter. She's captured and controlled all types of monsters, including a new Frankenstein's monster. There's only one monster that she hasn't been able to control yet, Dracula. That is until today, because the experiment we're going to be going going on is supposed to once and for all bring him under her control. Then the doors open up and Frankenstein's monster, which is one of the coolest animatronics I've ever seen, waves us along. We come across Dracula's coffin, then we board our ride vehicles, and it's time to go on an experiment. It starts with us entering the catacombs and coming across Igor, who takes control of our vehicle and spins us around a little before launching us into the main lab. We fly past a list of all the monsters Frankenstein's captured and come across the Phantom of the Opera, who's playing an organ that's shooting out fire, which is stankin' awesome. Then we spin around to Dr. Frankenstein, who tells us it's time to witness her control Dracula. She powers up the machines, shooting electricity through these tubes and having her monster connect the signal. Then we flip around to see Dracula, who's trapped in this circle thing. Out of nowhere, he escapes and starts flying. He blasts us backwards, and then we spin around to these creepy vampire ladies escaping. They start flying around, and Dracula vanishes. We see the monster fighting one off, and Dr. Frankenstein shooting one with her electricity crossbow. Then, out of nowhere, we're launched down, and the creature from the Black Lagoon jumps at us, but we twist away just in time for the Wolfman to attack us. We back away, but he starts chasing. He jumps over us, howls at the moon, and swings at us from above. We're just out of reach though, and the monster electrocutes him. Then we spin around to see the mummy escaping from his sarcophagus. I doubt we're gonna see him again though, as we back away and see Dr. Frankenstein shooting at the vampires with the electricity crossbow. Then the mummy attacks us from the ceiling, reaching down and nearly grabbing us. But we escape, and Igor turns on this huge system of daylight controlling rings. See, I told you what I pointed out in the line was gonna be important. We turn around to see a giant Dracula animatronic flying up as the light was destroying all the other vampires behind him. We ran away and saw the monster using one of the reflector light things to attack a vampire. Then Dracula came back, charged up an attack, but got blasted by light at the last second, sending him crashing into some wood. But that didn't stop him, because he got right back up and crawled at us like Wolfman. Then he jumped at us, but at the last second he got hit by sunlight by Dr. Frankenstein, who tells him that
all monsters will bow to the name Frankenstein.
And after Igor got attacked by a billion bats, the ride was over.
What the heck just happened? I'm speechless, dude. That is the greatest ride I have ever ridden. Nothing is even close. That's better than Spider-Man. That's better than Rise of the Resistance. Dude, that is the greatest thing I've ever ridden. By the way, I'm gonna be ranking every single ride that we ride, and that is easily number one. Of course, meaning that the Donkey Kong coaster is number two, though I guarantee this list is going to change dramatically as the day goes on. I honestly could even see Monsters Unchained, as good as it was, losing the top spot, because there just so happens to be another ride in this park that is apparently somehow even better than that ride, which I do not understand how it is even physically possible to be better than that ride, but apparently there's a ride better than it.
Anyways, after that, I went over to the coaster that was literally right across the path from Monsters Unchained, Curse of the Werewolf. I ended up taking a wrong turn though, which took me past a giant windmill that suddenly caught on fire, which was awesome.
I haven't heard a ton of great things about this ride. I actually haven't heard a ton of things about this ride, period. From what I've seen around the land though, it looks pretty chill. It's a spinning coaster, looks like it goes forwards, a little bit of backwards. It looks like a good time.
The line was really not that exciting, just taking me through a few tents, but thankfully I didn't have to wait very long. It starts with a launch that throws us straight into this hill that we barely clear. For a second, I honestly thought that we were stuck, but then we tipped over and dropped down the other side, twisting through this little turn and shooting straight through a building. We flew up into this high turn, but we didn't have enough speed to make it all the way, so we rolled back and dropped through the building again. That's when I noticed that there might have been something above us, but I didn't get much time to look because we got launched out the other side, shot halfway up that one turn, and dropped back for another launch through the building. That time, I finally saw it. There's a werewolf coming down from the ceiling and lunging at us as we tore through the room and launched up over this huge turn, then dove into some low to the ground turns that snapped me to the side. Then we twisted around a little bit more and hopped over a path, which was the end of the ride.
Well, that was a fun coaster. No part of the coaster blew me away, no part of it knocked my socks off, but I don't think it was intending to knock my socks off or blow me away. I think it's just here to have another coaster in the park, and for that it's pretty good, but it's not like as good as the other ones we've ridden, so it's gonna go in third place.
That was the last ride in Dark Universe, meaning it's time to move on on to the next land, the Isle of Berk, which was on the complete opposite side of the park. The journey took ages and took me past a beautiful fountain and the entrance to the Harry Potter land, which we're going to be going into later. Now, once I made it to the land, I had to go through another portal, which opened up to one of the most beautiful theme park lands I've ever seen.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's so cool.
This land is home to 3 different rides: Dragon Racers Rally, Hiccup's Wing Gliders, and Fire Drill. I decided to start with the first one I saw, Dragon Racers Rally, which could be a family ride, or it could be a thrill ride. It's actually up to you, because you control exactly what type of ride you want to have by moving these paddles. You can either keep the paddles straight and have a relaxing ride, which would be super lame, or you can rock the paddles back and forth and try and flip, which is exactly what I did, or at least tried to do, because it was actually really difficult to get it to flip. On the first lap, I was just trying to get the hang of it, so I just kind of rocked back and forth. The second lap, though, I really started to go for a flip, but I couldn't get it to do anything more than a half flip, which was kind of disorienting, but it wasn't a full flip, so I kept going. On the third lap, I managed to hold myself upside down for a couple seconds before stalling out sideways and then flipping back to normal. I kept trying over and over again on the next few laps, but no matter how hard I threw myself to the side or flipped the paddle things, I just couldn't get myself to flip. Finally, I started to get some momentum going, and I thought I was gonna get a flip, but right before I could, the ride started slowing down and locked me back into the default position, stopping at a really uncomfortable angle and descending back to the ground.
I love how controllable that ride is. Like, I know that's the whole gimmick of it, but God, the controllability is so fun. If I wanted it to be chill, it could be chill. I didn't want it to be chill, so it wasn't chill. It was something. I didn't get a full flip, but I got a lot of partial flips that like held me upside down, which was a bizarre feeling. That said, it is definitely number 4 in the park. It's not trying to be anything more than number 4 in the park, though.
After that, I went over to the land's coaster, Hiccup's Wing Gliders.
Even though this is a kiddie coaster, I'm so excited for this for some reason.
While I was in line, it started to torrentially downpour for about an hour, which shut down nearly every single ride in the park. I do find it a little bit strange that the park only has 3 indoor rides for people to ride in the rain, considering the park is in Florida where it rains like dang near every single day. Also, real quick, I gotta talk about how this park has literally 0 shade. If you aren't in a shop, restaurant, or waiting in line, you are going to be in the sun. There are barely any locations in the entire park that you can get away from it. The sun and the heat were actually so bad that I had to retreat under my umbrella a few times just to get any relief from it. Anyways, after the rain let up, I blazed through the line and climbed into the train, which really looks like it's made of beans. The ride starts by going over a few of these little humps before going into this contraption thing where we see Hiccup spinning this wheel. Then we come across Toothless, who pushes this giant button and shoots us into the sky with a shockingly forceful launch. We twist around above the line for a little, then we dive down over a path and drop over the water. We do a little twist, and then out of nowhere we plunge under a bridge, emerging back over land. Then, after a surprisingly forceful helix, we twist into this little canyon where we see some grundle eggs which explode when they hatch. And, of course, they were about to hatch, so we launch off, or at least try to. We stall out midway and roll back, coming to a stop as the eggs start hatching and these little doofuses pop out. Then we launch again in another surprisingly intense launch, blasting up into the air and twisting through this massive nesting area packed with dragons. From there, we floated over a few little hills that didn't throw me out of my seat but did make me feel weightless before twisting through some tight turns right up next to the ground, snapping into this big turn, going through a few more graceful turns near the ground, and hitting the brakes.
Oh my God, that was so fun. I loved that, dude. It's not the fastest, it's not the tallest, it's not the craziest, it's not the wildest, but god dang, that is so fun. That's number 2 in the park. Like, it's not Monsters Unchained level. What the heck? There's a big stanker right there. What? This land is so cool.
And right across from that big stanker was the final ride in the land, Fire Drill. Unfortunately, it was down, but it wasn't just down, it was like super down.
It has been down literally all day. It's fine though, I have 3 days at this park.
So let's cut to day 2, because I'm sure it'll be open then, right?
It's been down all day today as well. I don't know what's happening. Day 3? It's still closed. We are 3 for 3 of days being here of it being closed. That said, basically everything in the park is closed today. It's insane. So I did end up buying a 4th day. So will it be open then? Oh my goodness, it's open. It's been 4 days. I am expecting this thing to be the most technologically advanced, most mind-blowing, most otherworldly, insanely, amazingly good ride for how stinking long it took to be able to actually even see it open. God, if this is just some standard boat ride where we just kind of go around in a circle and shoot at stuff, I'm gonna be so annoyed.
I'm not gonna spend very long talking about this ride because there really isn't much to talk about. The line is pretty boring, except for this area where we got sprayed by something, and the ride is just, ugh. The whole thing happens in this boat thing, and I had to use this cannon to spray targets with water. Now, because I was spraying stuff with water, I was expecting stuff to spray back. Nope. There were maybe 3 moments throughout the entire ride where any water was sprayed at us. Once it got me a tiny bit wet, but everything else, it didn't even get close to anyone. Also, just straight up nothing happened when we hit the targets. Like normally on rides like this, there's a point system so you can compete with the other riders riding, but from what I can tell, nothing like that existed on this. The water pressure was also very weak, so there were tons of targets that were literally impossible to hit. And that also meant that one of the ride's biggest selling points, being able to spray people on other boats, was literally impossible too. Maintenance was actively working on this ride while I was riding it, so I might not have gotten the full experience. And clearly the ride does have problems, but if I did get the full experience, I do not understand what the point of this ride is. It didn't get me wet, so it's not a water ride. There's no score, so it isn't really a shooting ride. There's not a story, so it's not a story ride. It's not thrilling, so it's not a log flume. It just felt like a complete waste of time.
So that sucked. Like there wasn't anything particularly bad with it. It just committed the cardinal sin of theme parks being so boring. Oh my God, nothing happened. Like I am not a big fan of getting wet, but it's like 95 degrees outside today and I would have appreciated getting a little bit sprinkled. I legitimately think I got more wet in the line than I did on that ride. I'm speechless, but not in the good way. I cannot believe it took 4 days to ride that.
Now, because I rode this about 2 weeks after everything else, I wasn't able to rank it, but it is very skippable. Anyways, back on day 1, I spent a little bit more time looking around the Isle of Berk, which is a truly insane land. There are animatronics everywhere, from inside of buildings like we saw, to tails, and this giant dude who blasts people with cold. I genuinely think this might be my favorite theme park land of all time. It's just so fun to walk around and look at stuff. Though while I was looking at stuff, I couldn't help but notice the giant roller coaster off in the distance, Stardust Racers, which looked awesome, so I decided to go over and ride it. Unfortunately, when I got to it, there was only one side running.
Well, it's not exactly racing right now. It's more or less just stardusting, I guess. We're gonna have to come back later to ride this, because like it looks like an insane coaster on its own, but then add in the racing element, and it looks like it could be a contender for the world's best roller coaster, and I want my first experience on it to be at its absolute best. So we're gonna have to come back later for that. It's fine though, I am absolutely starved. So let's go grab some food.
I ended up grabbing food from the restaurant that was literally right next to Stardust Racers, the Meteor Place. I can't help but feel like they missed an opportunity to not call this the Meteor Restaurant, because, you know, they sell meat. Anyways, as always, I got the theme park classic, a burger and fries. And of course, I started with the fries, which were pretty average.
That's a french fry.
Oh, and by the way, I didn't eat this in the restaurant. I took it over to the giant fountain area, which was awesome.
I wasn't sold on this central hub land like too much, but being here and seeing the fountain and just sitting and eating, this is, oh my God. This is something special.
After taking in the view, it was time for the burger, which was actually incredible.
Oh, that's banging. God, that's the best theme park burger I've ever had. Oh, there's some sort of sauce on that thing. Oh, that's banging.
And to make it even better, while I was eating it, a show started happening on the fountain, so I got to sit and eat a banger burger while watching an incredible fountain show. This was so insanely cool. If you come to the park, I highly recommend eating by this fountain. It's just beautiful. Now after that, I went back over to Stardust Racers, which still wasn't racing.
But it's fine, because I genuinely didn't even remember this until literally just now. We still have 2 more Mario rides to ride.
So I went back over to the Mario portal, went through the pipe and up the escalators again, and headed straight to the land's biggest and most exciting ride, Yoshi's Adventure.
Let's go, the Yoshi People Mover!
The line for this ride was actually surprisingly cool, taking me through a really pretty forest filled with all of these little Yoshi eggs, place. Eventually, I climbed up this tree, which took me into the loading area where I climbed into my Yoshi and started the ride, which was just straight up the people mover, but in Yoshi form, taking me on a tour around Mario Land. This sounds kind of boring, but the land was so unbelievably detailed that I actually loved it. There was so much to look at and see. Legitimately everywhere I looked in this land, something was moving. The ride also took me through areas that you can't see from the main paths, like this pipe where we saw the Mario Island thing from Mario Galaxy, a flying pink Yoshi, and Baby Mario for some reason. Once we got out of the pipe, we went through a few more smaller areas, floated around the land a little bit more, and returned back to the station.
That was so fun. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest, I did completely lose track of time, and it turns out in a really solid 2 minutes, my virtual queue for the Harry Potter ride hit, so we're not gonna be able to ride the rest of the Mario rides today, but it's fine. We're gonna cut back to tomorrow so we can ride the Mario rides, explore the Mario Land, do Stardust Racers, and ride the most incredible looking carousel I have ever seen. But for now, on day one, I need to run, because if I don't hit my virtual queue, I am very screwed.
Of course, on day 2, I started with the actual big boy ride in Mario Land, Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge.
So I rode, I think, this exact same ride back at Universal Hollywood a good minute ago, and I'm gonna be completely honest, my opinion on it has just gone down and down and down and down since I rode it. So I'm not going in with very high expectations, though the exact same thing happened with Transformers. I rode that at Universal Hollywood, really didn't like it, rode it again, absolutely loved it. So that exact same thing could happen with the Mario Kart ride. And honestly, I'm really hopeful that it does, especially because right now it has like an 85-minute long line.
Now, because of how long the line was, I decided to use the single rider line, meaning I can't really talk about the line. What I can talk about though is the ride, which was something. If you're unfamiliar, this is a shooting ride that uses big fancy augmented reality bogus to project Mario characters around you. It also moves at about 2 miles an hour, which is exactly what I imagine when I think about a Mario Kart ride. It starts by kind of teaching us how to shoot and letting me get a feel for the augmented reality bogus, which immediately was starting to make me feel a little dizzy. There wasn't time to feel dizzy though, because it was time to race as we spun around to the starting line, which was inside of Bowser's castle. Then after the famous Mario Kart countdown, the race was off. Bowser shot out in front of us and slammed the gate closed, sending us onto a side route. We turned around and came face to face with this ball dog thing, but we slowly turned around and somehow managed to escape his castle. This dude almost crushed us, then we meandered our way into the pipes, just in time to be shot at by a piranha plant. We spun around and I gathered another 15 shells before we went underwater in a scene that really steamed my ham.
Oh my god, I am so nauseous.
But I pushed through the nausea and continued to shoot at stuff as we floated around the underwater area and nearly got eaten by a giant eel. Bowser threw a squid at us, and when we came back to reality, there were a ton of these jellyfish dudes above us lighting our way as we, with about as much haste as a plank of wood, made our way to these fish bones, which suddenly became alive and sent swarms of smaller undead fish to attack us. Somehow we escaped, flipped around, and entered a haunted house. We were attacked by tons of boos and magician guys as we slowly found our way around the haunted halls. Suddenly, all the paintings blew off the walls, and before I knew it, we were in the sky where we got blown on by giant clouds and then came face to face with Lava Bowser, who tried to destroy us. But we shot tons of shells at him and defeated him super easily, and it was on to the grand finale, Rainbow Road. This was so unbelievably nauseating, I actually had to take the headset thing off. I think if I left it on any longer, I would have actually thrown up. Of course, we won the race along with the rest of Team Mario, ending the slowest race of all time.
Well, unlike Transformers, my opinion remains unchanged. I did not enjoy that ride. The VR stuff they do on that ride made me so nauseous. Besides that, a lot of the environments were cool. The gameplay, I mean, it seemed like it would be fun if I wasn't about to throw up. Right now, this ride is going in 5th place.
Now, that was the last ride in Mario Land, but there's still tons of stuff to do because this land is filled with mini games like this one where I had to hit these music notes when they lit up to play a Mario song. There's tons of interactive stuff like this, but there's also a few big boy games that you can play to earn these keys, and I wanted to play all of them. So I started with the Piranha Plant game, which I played back at Universal Hollywood and won easily. All I had to do was punch a few clocks and put this big ol' Piranha Plant back to sleep. Easy, right? It was very much not easy. For some reason, just hitting the clocks didn't work. I had to slam my fist on them, which really slowed me down, meaning that I got my ham completely steamed and I didn't win the key, which was devastating. It was fine though, because there were still 3 other games to play, so I went over to this game where I had to hit this POW block at the right time so it would launch the shell up and through the pipe. My first 2 attempts were really bad, but on the 3rd try, I accidentally got the timing right and got the key.
That game gets 3 big booms. Boom, boom, boom.
And then it was on to the next game, the Goomba game, which looked like by far the easiest game. All I had to do was spin this wheel, which would spin some grass and knock a Goomba over. So I spun like a madman, and after 10 seconds of full force spinning, which was shockingly tiring, I knocked the Goomba over and got the 2nd key. But in the process, I somehow managed to get hurt.
I accidentally let go of the handle and it whipped around and hit me in the wrist really hard. And now I have this big red mark right on my wrist from where it smacked into me. This is why you should subscribe. I am putting my body on the line.
So I decided to drown out the pain in the only way I knew how, the casino.
Let's go gambling.
The first box I hit landed on the Fyre flower, but the 2nd and 3rd landed on the Yoshi egg. So I completely gave up on the 4th and it landed on whatever this is.
Aw, dang it.
After that, I went over to another mini game, which was kinda hidden beneath this guy. I'm not gonna lie, this game also ended up hurting me, but it was for the dumbest reason possible. In this one, I needed to hit all the tiles to flip them over and make the entire screen one color. Keyword, hit. On every other game and interactable thing, I had to slam my fist onto them full force to get it to register. So obviously, I assumed that this would be the same. The only difference was those were soft, and this was hard plastic. So I spent the entire first half of this game full force punching the solid wall with my fists, which really stank and hurt. Eventually, the employee noticed what I was doing and stepped in. I felt really stupid and my hands really hurt as I finished making the wall blue, but I did end up winning and got the key.
So every single one of these games that I've played has hurt me. I am gonna take that as this land saying, get out. I'm gonna move on with my day. I'm not gonna lie, I'm just excited about getting to ride Stardust Racers. I've been looking forward to that all day, so let's get going over there.
But on the way over, I had to make a quick stop at the coolest carousel ever created. The building this thing is in is beautiful, and the carousel itself is not your grandfather's carousel. It's actually about as far away from your grandfather's carousel as possible. It spins in like 3 different ways, which makes it feel kind of like a dance more than a regular carousel. Also, the animals are amazing. The music is beautiful. Oh, and did I also mention it lifts you like 10 feet off the ground? They did not need to go this hard on a carousel, but I'm so glad they did.
I don't think I've ever been blown away by a carousel before until I rode that. That is like by far the best carousel I have ever ridden.
Anyways, now that I've had my mind blown by a carousel, it was finally time to take on what might be the world's greatest roller coaster, Stardust Racers, which, as the name implies, is a racing coaster, and it just might be the coolest looking racing coaster on the planet.
I don't think I've ever been more excited to ride a roller coaster than this one. Let's go ride it.
The line for this coaster was honestly terrible, like straight up Six Flags level bad. It was just one big long windy path with no story, no theme, and the most atrocious immersion-breaking views in the entire park. While standing in line, I could obviously see the office buildings across the street, a giant plain employee tent, a literal dumpster, I need to calm down. It doesn't really matter, especially because I forgot about it almost immediately because of how insanely good this coaster is. It starts with a slow twist into one of the greatest launches I've ever ridden. It starts slow, but out of nowhere, it suddenly became one of the most intense launches I've ever experienced, blasting me into this giant hill right next to the other train. I got ripped out of my seat as we dove to the ground and rose up into another hill that also threw me out of my seat as we twisted to the side, splitting up from the other train and going into back-to-back hills that all chucked me up into the air. First going underneath the yellow side, then going above them and plunging down next to the paths. We snapped up into a quick little hill that yanked yanked me out of my seat again, then floated over a big hill before diving down and twisting headfirst past the yellow track. It legit felt like we were about to slam into them. Then we floated through this weird crooked hill that floated me into the air and slammed into a second launch, which was one of the craziest things I've ever experienced. And before I could process that, we blasted into another one of the craziest things I've ever experienced as we corkscrewed over the yellow train. Then we dove to the ground as the yellow train corkscrewed over us. The coaster gave me a second to really soak in what happened as we went through a peaceful high turn, then snapped over a big twisting hill that flung me sideways and into the air at the same time as we dove to the side, went over the yellow train, went under the yellow train, went over it again, went under it again, flew down another drop that threw me out of my seat, and hit the brakes.
That was insane, dude. That legitimately is on par with Velocicoaster. And the craziest thing is that was just the Vomit Green side. Apparently the yellow side is like 15 times better than the Vomit Green side, which I don't understand how that's physically possible. Like, Vomit Green was already pretty much as good of a coaster as you're gonna get, but apparently yellow is somehow way better. So we gotta go do yellow.
It starts pretty much the same as Vomit Green, same little twist, same slow launch that suddenly slams into overdrive, same giant hill that launched me into the air, and that same wild twisting hill. But everything after that is when it starts to get so much better. We flew into a series of back-to-back hills, just like on the green side, but these hills were bigger, more sustained, and way more forceful, each one launching me up into my lap bar, holding me in the air before slamming me back down. We did another one and another one with no time to process what was happening. I was floating for seconds as we dove past the green track, then soared over the station and ducked under the green side. And right after that, we hit the second launch, which was somehow like 10 times more powerful than the green side. As green corkscrewed over us, we shot over a hill that kicked me straight out of my seat again, then dove and twisted through a corkscrew of our own, flying over them while still floating in the air. Then we blasted through the big turn and snapped over the turning hill, only to drop under the green side, go over them through a hill that threw me into my lap bar as we dove under them and rocketed through one final crazy hill.
Okay, so Vomit Green was already an insane coaster, but P Yellow took that to a whole nother level. Like, I didn't really trust people when they were all like, oh man, Yellow's so much better. I was like, it's basically the same coaster. I can't be that different. No, it's very different. Yellow is so much better. They're both different enough that I'm actually gonna rank them separately. So P Yellow is gonna take the number 2 spot and Vomit Green is gonna take the number 3 spot.
And with that, that's the last thing to ride on day 2.
So let's cut back to day 1. Let's go do the Harry Potter ride.
So after getting off of the Yoshi ride, I absolutely skedaddled over to the Harry Potter land, which might be the craziest land in the entire park. Just like all the other lands, I had to walk through this portal, which took me under this thing called a time turner. I wonder if that's gonna be important. Anyways, after going through the portal, I rounded a corner and entered into the land, which absolutely blew my mind.
Oh my god, that's huge. This is awesome.
The scale of this land is genuinely unfathomable. There isn't another land on Earth even close to the scale of this land.
I feel like you kind of have to come here in person to just get a feel for how big this area is. Genuinely, I can look anywhere in this land and my entire vision will be filled with more of this land. It is enormous.
I didn't have time to take it in though, because I had to rush over to the final ride, Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry. Now, getting in line for this ride is a little bit of a journey. First, I had to go into this pretty normal looking building and down a subway tunnel looking thing. Then I came across these green portals that people were walking into and disappearing into a cloud of smoke. And after waiting in line for a second, it was my turn.
Oh my god. Here we go. Greenify me. Yeah!
And with one more cloud of smoke, I emerged into the craziest thing I have ever seen at a theme park.
Oh my god. What the heck is this?
Finally, after touching the tiles, it was time to get in the actual line for the ride. By the way, I think you can go into the Ministry without actually getting in line for the ride. At least that's how it worked when I was there. Now, the actual line for the ride had us going deeper into the Ministry of Magic as we made our way to the trial of this lady, who during Voldemort's reign had tons of power and used it to be mean to innocent people. The line looked really cool, but I didn't get much time to look at it because they accidentally sent me me down the fast pass line, which caused me to blaze past basically everything, including this very pink room with tons of cats and this house elf dude. Before I could even register what was happening, I was already to the loading area, so I sat down in the weirdly Tower of Terror looking car, and it was riding time. Big shout out to Andrea's Ventures for the POV, by the way. It starts with us flying through a lift passage as we make our way to the trial. We come across a few other lifts and overhear other passengers talking about the trial. Then we come across Harry Potter and the gang, who are also talking about the trial while flying through the passages. This may all look like screen on video, but this thing is actually physically there, which makes this the most convincing motion effect I've ever seen on a ride. Suddenly, we get knocked off course and come across the evil lady and a Death Eater who straight up murders someone before the evil lady magically removes her prison uniform and sends her lift to the time room. She commands the evil dude to dispose of us and disappears. The Death Eater shoots us with red, which disables our elevator, and we start plummeting down one of the lift passages. Harry Potter saves us from falling though. Then the house elf snaps its fingers, which teleports us as we turn around and enter the Ministry Archives, which is under attack by the Death Eaters. This is the largest set I have ever seen on a ride. I kid you not, my entire car let out a gasp when we entered this room.
Oh my god.
The Harry Potter gang appears out of nowhere and gets attacked by the Death Eaters, which are some of the coolest animatronics I've ever seen. Then one notices us. It slides to the side on a giant bookshelf and shoots us with red, but gets distracted by a ghost, giving us just enough time to escape. We see a ghost on the wall, then turn around and come face to face with another Death Eater. It spots us and decides to finish what the other one couldn't. So it shoots us with red, which spins us around and sends us into the Department of Magical Creatures, where we come across the mean lady again. She's torturing the house elf dude, then she notices us and shoots us with pink, which causes us to drop down in an effect so realistic I legitimately don't know if we actually dropped or not. We see a deer thing before, out of nowhere, a rhino charges at us, but at the last second it bursts through a wall. We follow it for some reason and get thrown in the air and nearly impaled before it starts charging at us again. We run away and, yet again, it trips and slams through the wall. We follow it again for some reason, and after twisting through the halls, we come face to face with it, which is now one of the biggest and coolest animatronics I have ever seen. Oh, and the Harry Potter gang is back now too. Not for long though, because the rhino hits their elevator thing and they teleport to the time room. We spin around and enter the time room ourselves, where we see that we're too late and the evil lady has a time turner, which she's gonna use to go back to the time of Voldemort. Something goes wrong though, and the time turner explodes, sending out a shockwave and causing everything to turn to dust as time itself starts to fall apart. Then we spin around and enter a giant clock tower where time is rapidly falling apart and the Harry Potter gang is trying to catch the evil lady and fix everything, but Death Eaters are trying to stop them. They defeat a few by the gears, then we turn around to find the evil lady again, who yells at us before getting her wand stolen by the house elf dude. Then the platform she's standing on turns around and she gets shot out into what's left of reality, which has completely fallen apart. The Harry Potter gang catch her and, just before reality ends, teleport her back to where she should be, the courtroom, fixing the timeline and finally letting her get sentenced to life in prison. She gets locked back into the prisoner suit she escaped from at the beginning of the ride as we get our picture taken and fly back to the Ministry, which is the end of the ride.
I'm speechless. I do not know how to even begin to process what I just experienced. The scale of that ride is on a level that has never been done before and will never be done again. I don't know how to explain it. It was so immersive. That's the thing. That is the most immersive ride of all time. Like, you know how sometimes on rides you'll have a second to think about something or something will take you out of the action? Nothing took you out of the action on that ride. Were there screens? Yeah, but the screens were so realistic, it was legitimately, I think, nearly impossible to tell where the screens ended and where reality continued. And the scale of everything, I keep saying that because I can't wrap my head around it. There were so many scenes, they were big enough that they could have been their own ride. I didn't think anything could top Monsters. And then I wrote that. That is number one by like so much, and that's saying so much because how good Monsters is, dude. Oh my god.
So is Epic Universe actually worth the hype? Yeah, this is the next evolution of the theme park. We have never seen a park like this before, and I doubt we will again for a very long time. Every land is so detailed, every ride is so immaculately created, the stories are amazing, the portals are amazing, the central hub is awesome, and there's just so much to see and explore. I have been to this park as of recording 5 different times, and I'm still finding stuff to see and do. I didn't even mention in this video the shows, the wand stuff. There's tons of shops and food options. There's Mario stuff I didn't find, and they're already adding new stuff. Literally, while I was writing this video, they've added more effects to the Monsters ride, taking an incredible ride and making it even better. If you have the time and the money, I would highly recommend coming to this park. It is easily the best theme park in the US and probably the world. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you should check out this one from the former world's best theme park, Islands of Adventure, which is also a Universal park and is right next to Epic Universe.